Welcome to Cityscope. I'm Susan Cashman, your host for this edition of Cityscope. Our guest is a woman of many talents. She is an artist who creates one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry. She is about to let us in on a few of her trade secrets as she demonstrates the making of this very unique jewelry. She is a therapeutic counselor whose work focuses on the psychology of creativity. She has information to share which just might affect your life. She is Deborah Bier. Hi, Debbie.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Let's begin by showing everybody some of these pieces of jewelry that you have created.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
I've brought a few pieces here. These are some beaded necklaces with wire sculpture. Wire sculpture is a little more than wrapping pieces with wire. It's much more elaborate, as you can see. It has many twists and turns to it, and each piece is actually quite unique. I don't think I've ever made the same piece twice.
Maybe you could hold them up because they're not showing on the monitor.
Okay.
If you could hold them to your left side.
To my left, okay. These are some onyx pieces. This is using rolled gold wire, and I'll show you how the wire comes in a while. Whoops. This is a vintage glass cameo that I've made into a wire sculpture. As you can see, it has some rhinestones. It's really quite one of a kind. They literally don't make them like this any longer.
Well, sometimes these bright lights in the studio wash out the detail, but if people could see that up close, that is so intricate. It has the rhinestones, it has gold flowers, it has gold around the edges, and then all the wiring that holds it into place. That must have taken a very long time to create that piece.
Well, when I get into it, into the flow, it's surprising how short these things can take. I'd like to show you a couple of other pieces. This is a magnifying glass necklace. You can see the magnifying glass on the bottom, and I make them very long so they can be a functional piece of jewelry.
We can actually use them when we're looking at that fine print?
When you don't want to admit you have to wear glasses, it's a perfect time for that. And this is a piece of ocean jasper and silver with Czech crystal beads.
So each one of these beads has a name to it?
It does. These are crystal, actually, though they look like they're stone. Mm-hmm. These are more glass beads, and this is a sodalite pendant. Let's see if you can see that, with wrapped in silver. This is a Montana moss agate wrapped in gold. And these are glass beads. See the many combinations, and none of them really look alike.
No. Well, agate's a familiar name. Anyone who's taken basic classes in high school has come across that term.
Millions of agates, yes, there are. This is a very interesting little set with, let me put this in my hand, perhaps you can see it better. Earrings and a necklace, a pendant which can be strung. And what's interesting about this is that this is coprolite. Do you know what coprolite is?
No.
It's fossilized dinosaur dung. Oh. Isn't it beautiful? It has reds and greens and grays and yellows in it. It's really quite beautiful. And it's safe at this point.
I don't know that you should be advertising it that way.
Actually, people find it very amusing. I also make sculptures out of glass beads. And here's another cameo. I don't know if you can see this. This is a woman with her guardian angels on it. And that's also in rolled gold, and you can see there's some twisted gold on this, twisted gold wire. So these are just a few of the things that I brought to show you.
They're absolutely beautiful. You didn't show that one that looks wooden. Yes, can you hold that one up? That one looks like it has so many different shapes and colors to it.
It does. This is a piece of carnelian at the bottom, the rectangular piece, and the rest is wood and the little glass and stone. But these little beads here, they're made of betel nut.
Betel nut. And what is that?
Betel nut is a South Pacific plant.
Oh, it's a plant.
Is a nut.
Okay.
Whoops. And they're very, very lightweight, which is very nice because you don't really want a heavy necklace wearing you down all day long.
Well, they're going to be conversation pieces too.
People do find themselves very attracted to them. My customers tell me that everyone comes to them and asks them what about the necklaces, even when they're just simple glass. I'm not sure quite how I do something unique, but it's my own creativity that
but
goes
also,
into it.
just look at all the information you can tell when you talk about wearing dinosaur dung and beetle nut.
Absolutely.
And things that people had never heard about before. That would
Absolutely.
make for great conversation. And
Then there are the pieces we're wearing as well.
oh, yes, I was looking at this one, and I noticed this one because I had looked at it before. It looks green,
It does.
but when you put it up against yellow, it takes on an entirely new personality.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
It's called yellow turquoise. And it's not really turquoise. There's a lot of very odd names for stones that have nothing to do with their real origins. I believe it's a type of serpentine, but it's marketed as yellow turquoise.
Yellow turquoise. Well, it looks great against yellow.
Oh, that's great. I'll have to try that.
Yes, and a minute ago you mentioned the pieces we're wearing. I'd like everyone to see the piece that I'm wearing. And once again, I hope it shows up on the camera and doesn't get washed out by lights. When I had it on, oh yeah, I think we're starting to see that now.
I think you
when
can
I
see
had
the
it on under the low lighting conditions, the trim of silver around the edges was just glowing under the lights. It made it very delicate and dressy.
And the pink is showing up very nicely on it. It's pink zebra jasper.
Pink zebra jasper.
Yes.
And what are you wearing?
I'm wearing two necklaces. This is a piece of dichroic glass. I've used vintage seed beads and freshwater pearls on it. Let's see the dichroic glass here. It's a very small piece. And this piece, actually, a little later on, will work on replicating something close to it. This is a piece of lilac quartz that I've done wire sculpture with, and it's got a beaded necklace.
Okay, and so you're going to show us now how you create some of these.
I'd like to try.
Okay,
Yes.
but I'm thinking as I'm looking at them, where do you find all of these unique stones?
You know, sometimes I can do a lot of shopping on the internet, which is wonderful, because otherwise I would have to be traveling to shows, to wholesale warehouses in New York and things like that. The internet is really a delight.
And do you have a website that our viewers could turn to see some of
I
these?
do. It's www.spiralbeading.com.
Spiralbeading.com.
Yes.
Okay, so let's see what you have in your box there.
Okay.
And the people who are watching should know that they can buy your jewelry through your website, and you do something which I think is unique, trunk shows.
I do trunk shows at people's homes or businesses where I would bring the jewelry, and it's kind of a jewelry party. I'm also here in Leominster once a month at the Masonic Lodge. The first Saturday of the month there is a fair, and I've been exhibiting there since May.
So people can go to that fair, look at your wares, purchase what they want.
Right?
Okay, that sounds great.
So let me show you a little bit about this. Reorganize myself here.
And do you have your jewelry in any stores?
I do. It's in Aquarius Sanctuary in Westford, in a shop up in Ipswich that I'm going to remember its name in a moment, but I've just suddenly gone blank. Also the Emerson Hospital gift shop in Concord. This is the gold wire that I use. It comes in a roll like this, and it unwinds pretty easily, and I cut lengths from that, and I use very simple tools. The kind of tools that you might have around your house, or you could very inexpensively purchase. Different pliers. This is a cutter. These pliers are round and these are flat, and if you just touch the points of these, tell me what it feels like. It feels kind of not like metal.
Not at all. I was going to say it feels a little bit like a hard rubber.
It is. It's
Oh,
exactly
that's what
what
it
it
is,
is. I've dipped these into a liquid rubber, some kind of a polymer, and when it dries, it protects the wire from being marred by the work that I'm doing. So just to show you some attempts at replicating what I've made here, I have another piece of lilac quartz that I've put on a very small wire. And I've cut 3 lengths of the wire that I'll use for sculpting. And I'm attaching this with the wire to like a harness. It's really a harness for the wire. And I'm going to snip the excess. And I'm going to lock it down with the pliers. And now I have these 3 strands on either side of the bead. And people are not quite sure how I make these sculptures. And they ask if I use a torch or if I use tools. And the answer is I do it with my bare hands. And it's not because I have the strength of Superman. It's because the wire is very soft. So let me show you.
Oh, it bends easily.
Bends very easily. And I can make twists and curls with this wire.
And your pieces are one of a kind. So even though you're replicating the one that you're wearing, I think it will not look exactly the same.
It'll never happen. In fact, I make all kinds of happy mistakes.
Yes.
That mean that it's never going to be the same. So already I have the wires going in different directions than I have on the necklace I'm using. But I would simply just start working with that and seeing what I could do with it. It's really very fun. What's kind of interesting with this wire is that you have to go very lightly with it because it's like bread dough. If you work the dough too much, it starts to become stiff, or pie crust. This wire stiffens as you work with it, so you have to go pretty lightly. And after I worked to create my sculpture, I would then work on the beaded portion, and then I did a sculpture, which, of course, it's not the same as this one, but it's in the neighborhood.
Well, each stone is different, so you must need to sculpt around the stone.
Also, just the inspiration of the moment, and those happy mistakes that I make. Either I cut the wire too long or too short, or I twist it in a different direction. I can never replicate something. So this is an example of a finished sculpture. And what I've done is I've used beading wire, which comes...
Can you hold that up so we can... No, the finished, the beads there. Yeah.
This is one of the sides of the necklace.
Oh, okay.
It has a clasp on the end. The other side has the other side of the clasp. And these are beads on a piece of wire. And this contraption is a clamp, because it would be very easy for these beads to fly in a moment. And I use beading wire that's very fine, and it's very important to use good beading wire, because if you don't, you have breakage, and that's very messy.
Yes.
So then I attach the beads to both sides of the piece, and then I end up with a finished piece.
That's beautiful. Those colors all match just perfectly.
You know, I had the feeling of ice when I looked at this centerpiece, and I wanted to play off the icy, sparkliness of it.
Well, here the lights are shining on it, and it's warm looking. The gold has a warm tone to it.
There are flashes of the gold with it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we should tell people that your jewelry is very competitively and reasonably priced.
Most pieces are under $100. Many of them are between $25 and $60. So I hope that makes it available to people.
Let's focus on your cameos for a minute.
Sure.
I know those are very unique. All of this is unique. So how did you come about making this unique type of jewelry?
You know, it's just a little urge that I started out a couple of years ago. And I obeyed that urge, and I allowed myself to explore where that urge went to make jewelry. And this is where it's brought. I don't know where it will bring me in a year from now.
The part about taking the wires and sculpting around that, was that your very own idea?
No, these are techniques that are used by other wire artists, but that everyone has their own style. I learned from a teacher in the South who does very ornate things, and that's not my style. I like to use more organic material and be less fancy. Okay,
so let's see those cameos now. I know cameos can be very, very expensive. And how do you create a cameo piece?
I searched for a very long time for a source of cameos that I felt were of good quality. There's a lot of carved cameos that are very poorly done, and I just wasn't going to spend some time with it. I found some artists in different parts of the country through the internet who are making lovely porcelain cameos that they fire, so they're very durable, with lovely images on them. This one, as I mentioned before, is a vintage piece, so they also collect and sell vintage pieces, but this is one that was made by an artist, I believe, in Georgia.
Okay, it's beautiful. Yes. Very beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. And are you going to be sculpting more as we talk? Are you going to be stringing beads as we talk?
I don't think I could do that without dropping things.
Oh, okay, okay, that would be fine. Let's talk about some of that interesting information you were going to tell everybody about creativity.
Yeah.
How it can fit into our lives and what it means.
Well, you know, that fits into another part of my life. I'm a holistic therapist. I have a doctorate in counseling, and I work with people who are often chronically ill. I think creativity is very important for our health and well-being. I've often seen creativity as being part of a vehicle for people to become well. I don't think it's necessarily the entire vehicle, but as they start to become more well or reach out for something different to change their lives, often their creativity starts to come online. It's very exciting to watch.
Well, I had to look it up in the dictionary. I know that when you say creativity, people think usually of the arts.
Right.
Mostly the arts of painting and drawing, occasionally music. I would think that creativity would also include someone who might be a mathematician or a financial whiz and can do things that are creative in that line.
Right.
Most people tend not to think that way. So I looked it up in the dictionary, and it said that creativity was the ability to create. And it meant having the quality of being created rather than imitated.
Ah, so something unique.
Very unique. Produced through imaginative skill.
So I think also of creativity as being able to take something with the resources you have and assembling those resources in a way that you come up with something new. So that can apply to the arts, and very importantly applies to the arts, but it also applies to a way of approaching life. It's an ability to see problems as creative challenges, to be able to allow your unconscious creative urges to come forward to solve those problems in new ways.
And you mentioned that people who are ill can use this to improve their health. Tell us a little bit about that. People are always thinking about lowering their blood pressure or lowering their cholesterol or triglycerides. Does this play a part in that, or are you talking about more serious illnesses?
Well, you know, there is a stress component to many, many illnesses, either in their creation or of the illness, or living with the illness creates stress. I've seen some authorities say between 50 and 80% of illness has to do with stress. Being creative can be a great stress reducer. There is a state of consciousness we can enter into called flow. This is what psychologists who specialize in creativity say. And that state of flow you've probably experienced, where everything becomes easy for a certain amount of time, where it happens a lot with sports too. People say, I could have shot the basket from any place in the court and it would have gone in. I was just in the groove, I was in the flow. And we even use that word, in the flow.
In the flow.
And there is it's a particular state of mind that actually has physiological effects of helping reduce stress. When we look at brain scans of people who are in a state of flow, we see that they're not using more of their brains, they're actually using less of their brains in a very optimal way. So it's a way to use your abilities in an optimal manner. And this is a great stress reducer. Many people say, working with whatever creative art that they work with, this really makes me relax.
Yes.
Very important.
And tell us what you learned about patients with Alzheimer's and the creative arts. Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a wonderful program being done in a museum in New York City. I think it was the Museum of Modern Art, where they brought Alzheimer's patients from the facilities that they were living in on a day that the museum was closed, and they would expose them to original works of art. And the effects were quite amazing. People who were withdrawn or nonverbal, unable to speak any longer, or unable to walk or use their bodies well, not oriented to time and space, became very engaged, verbal. They would connect with people, their relationships would resume, and this would be an effect that would be lasting for a number of days after the exposure to the arts. I have to say that this was not an effect that is produced with copies of artwork, but the originals.
Only originals?
Only the originals. Maybe it's the size of some of the pieces, but people who had not spoken for a long time were able to speak and engage with the artwork and discuss it.
So sometimes people, or very often people, will say, I don't have a creative bone in my body. Give them some advice.
You know, I think sometimes it's a matter of looking at how your life is through new eyes. I think anyone who has lived to adulthood has somehow found some creative ways to address their problems. I think that when you have those little urges to do something different or innovative to address a problem in your life, that's a moment of creativity, and we really have to learn to not be afraid of those times and to allow our creative forces to come forward, kind of abandon ourselves to them and surrender ourselves and allow them to work the problem. And it's really quite amazing when that happens. I had a head injury in a car accident in the early 1990s, and I hadn't drawn or painted since I was maybe 8 years old. And I was considerably older than 8 at that time. And I suddenly, quite spontaneously, started to draw and paint. And I allowed myself to really just let go and do that. And it really helped to rebuild my brain, which was damaged. It helped me create new connections in my brain so that I could function better. And it was one of the only delightful things that I was able to do at that period of my life, which was very difficult.
Well, I would be interested in hearing some of the research when you talk about your brain. I know I've studied a lot about left brain, right brain, and I would like to know if this has anything to do with brain chemistry, or if it's a matter of just being relaxed and enjoying yourself, or if that too has to do with chemicals changing in the brain.
I think it's true. I think when we get into that state of flow, we create those feel-good chemicals in our body, which reduce our stress and start correcting things like blood pressure or any of the effects of stress that are, systemic on every system in our bodies.
Yeah, yes. Well, that sounds really fascinating. We're just about out of time. I wonder, Carl, is there enough time to show one or two of the photos that she brought for some close-ups of her jewelry? Okay. I think the microphone is on if you would like to speak above the...
I'm not sure which photo is being shown.
Okay, well, when they come up, you can see them right there on the monitor.
There we are. Okay. There are 4 necklaces. I believe 3 of them are all done with glass. I really enjoy working with glass. The light and the depth of color in glass is really lovely. The one on the bottom right is dichroic glass, and the others are stones, I believe. No, actually, the ones on the outer edges are both dichroic glass.
And what is dichroic?
Dichroic glass is a special kind of glass. It's a coating on the glass or fused into the glass. Sometimes it's called fused glass. It's something that was made for an aeronautics application that has artistic use now.
Oh, I'll say it again. Anybody who has a piece of your jewelry will definitely have a lot to talk about. Can we flip to the second slide?
I saw it up there a moment ago. It was a blue and white cameo.
Oh, another one.
Oh, there we go. That's a floral cameo. I really love this piece. It's has wonderful detail in the cameo itself, and I love how the wire sculpture came out. It just flows very nicely around it.
Much detail in the wire sculpture too. Yeah. About how long does it take you? I know earlier you said it's surprising how quickly they go, but...
Well, you know, it can take just a few minutes for me to make a wire sculpture, but it could take me a half an hour to correct one teeny mistake, so it's very hard to say. I spend a lot of time tucking in the wire so that they don't abrade the person who's wearing them, poke them, or scratch them.
And do you do special orders?
I do. People either have a particular color that they'd like me to work with, or stone, or a size that maybe is unusual.
Okay, well, this was wonderful. This was beautiful jewelry, and I hope people in the audience had some tips on creativity that will have a positive effect on their life. Thank you for bringing this to show us in our city, and thank you to the staff at LATV, and thank you to the viewers for watching Cityscope. I'm Susan Cashman.